If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If the robot is saying, "How can I help you?" and then you start to put your order in, and then a different voice comes in and says, "Oh, can you repeat that order for me?"
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, NaRon Tillman, and you are with me for another episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory, walk.
Warning! This is a public service announcement. The Walk in Victory podcast is where we have conversations purposed to evolve lives. You may not want to evolve. Then tune into another bleeping podcast. Everyone else, enjoy the show. And here's our host.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, NaRon Tillman, and we are here for another exciting episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of excitement episodes and victory walks, we are living again in a unique time where the digital boom is really hitting the mainstream, so to say. We've been living in a digital age when we use our phones and all those things, that navigation systems and all of those things, that is a part of the digital age. But the unique part about what's happening right before us, and if you're an entrepreneur, you should be excited, is the automations and things that these AI agents will allow us to do will not only speed up time, and we always have a slogan, time is money and money is time. But it will take stuff away from us that we can now focus on creativity. I spent all morning editing videos and creating reels and doing all of these things. It took a long time, but I got 11 videos done. Got 11 videos done I was up since like 3 or 4. I started around 4 this morning. So I wouldn't have gotten 11 videos done in a day, scheduled out. Now working on the artwork. I wouldn't have got that done in a day. I would have been frustrated at the task. I would probably quit a few times in between. And once your morale gets down, it's hard to boost back up. But because I have these tools that helps the process move along, I didn't really get discouraged. It was tedious, but it didn't really matter much because a lot of the stuff was getting done. And I got excited as I looked at the progress that I made. As I began to churn them out, my goals started changing about how many I wanted to have done for the day. How can I maximize the day and make sure I get all of those things done so that I can get all of my blogs done, so I can get all of the other things done. But once I have that task out of my to-do list, it is just like, oh, okay. Now the juices are flowing, the creativity is flowing. And if you understand anything about time and management and movement, the work actually begins to get a little bit faster if you stay engaged, because you're working the same muscle and you're repeating, almost like a robot. It's being that we're talking AI. But we have an opportunity, and that's why I wanted to have these conversations. I actually changed my profile list to attract people who were making moves in the space of AI, who can lend a voice about the digital age, and who can help us to understand how to have successful digital strategies so that we can position ourselves to be successful, because we have conversations that help people evolve. Chris, how you doing, sir?
I am doing fabulous.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You don't mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Chris Hood. I'm a strategist by trade, but I'm also an author, a speaker. I spend a lot of time consulting with organizations on everything from customer centricity to how artificial intelligence is impacting our lives on a daily basis. And I also write a lot, not just content out there in blogs and stuff, but I've published now two, we'll call it 2.5 books. The half is a companion guide for my first book. But my newest book just came out last week, actually, and it's called Infallible. And it is all about how AI is reshaping our behaviors and how consumers are looking at AI and um, and working or uh, engaging with businesses in different ways because of the AI. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. So let's jump on behavior modification because I'm a mindfulness coach and been working in that field for some time. And one of the things to that we find difficult is to modify a person's behavior. Um, we've looked at certain studies and stuff and learned that at one point they thought that the brain, the neural pathways couldn't change after a certain age. You were who you were. It was work by scientists who do some really good work. They found out that there are ways to change and create new behaviors and pathways. But when you talk about AI and behavior, how do you see AI impacting the way that we are now engaging in the world?
Yeah, you touch on two interesting topics there. The first thing that you said was about how it's very hard to change people's behaviors. And that's true. In most cases, if I was to ask you to, do something that's outside of your normal behaviors, you probably wouldn't do that. And even as employees, a good example of this right now is there's a lot of companies that are asking people to return to the office. COVID has happened. People got very comfortable with working from home, and now you're being asked to change your behavior and return to the office. That's very challenging for people. In consumerism, we see kind of the same thing. A good example of this is self checkouts. Over the course of, say, the last 10 years, we have been presented with the option of going through a self checkout line and taking care of it ourselves. Now, there are a lot of people out there that like that experience. There's a lot of people out there that do not like that experience. And even for some, just because there's now a self checkout doesn't mean that their behavior has necessarily changed. They'll still go and look for somebody to assist them, or in some cases, the people who like it or convenience or want to go fast, they're going to go through that self checkout. But that process, that evolution, has taken us, easily 10 years for us to get to that mindset that this is, a part of our lives. And yet, what we are seeing now with artificial intelligence is the lack of an option. So I'll use Taco Bell as an example because I think Taco Bell is one of the organizations, one of the companies, businesses that are doing this poorly. And that is that when I go to a Taco Bell, I am basically being forced to either use an artificial intelligence, chatbot agent or a kiosk for my ordering. I do not have the option. And if we are presented with, like I go through the drive-through and an artificial intelligence agent comes up and asks me for my order, I can't then sit there and say, "Hey, can I talk with a real person?" Right? So being forced into the engagement with AI is one of the biggest challenges that consumers are faced with. And your options are I go to Taco Bell and have to talk with an artificial intelligence system to place my order, or I go to Del Taco where there's still somebody standing outside and taking my order and is more than happy to work with me, right? Those two options are I go to your business or I go to your competitor.
Mhm.
And when we force this upon consumers, then we're not really asking them to change their behavior. We are forcing them to change their behavior, no different than if I told you, you now have to return to work. It's probably going to be something that a lot of people don't want to do. And thus, you're going to ultimately lose out on that business.
Well, it's yeah, because that's the thing you said a mouthful because that's the thing. Changing, having the consumer change their behavior gradually, going through a process. Like me, I don't really like self checkout, but I was in Costco the other day, and because I'm like I want to keep people employed. So my reasoning is different. I can stand on the line for a little while. I think that is my job as a human to help someone keep a job. But if I was to go and have that Taco Bell experience, McDonald's started doing this a while ago, and a lot of drive-throughs, you have a robotic pre-recorded voice, and it may be Mel, and it's like, "Hey, welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" And then when you start to talk, you hear another voice that sounds totally different, and it kind of throws you off. What happens in the psychosomatic of the customer when they're being challenged to make these changes so fast?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, ultimately, you touched on it. Even something as simple as the voice changes, right? Um, we get frustrated. It's not even, um, think about it also as um, if you've ever had to call in to some sort of customer support, like let's say you bought a TV and the TV isn't working, and you call your cable company and you go through this whole explanation as to what's the problem because they say, "Well, can you tell us what the problem is?" And you talk for about 10 minutes about what the problem is, and they're like, "Okay, great. Sorry, this isn't the right department. Let me change you to a different department." So then you go to the different department and they say, well, tell me what the problem is. And then you have to say the whole thing. But now instead of like 10-minute explanation, you get it down to 5 minutes. And then they say, oh, let me hand you off to somebody else. And then you get handed, and then I've been in that situation and I tell this whole story. And by the time I get to the fourth or fifth person in that handoff, I'm saying, my TV doesn't work. It's like, just, I'm tired of trying to re explain this over and over. And the same process happens, believe it or not, when we go to like a McDonald's. We hear one voice, all of a sudden we hear a different voice, and it's like, well, wait a second. Do I have to repeat myself? Do I have to say this again? And then a lot of times it is the same question. If the robot is saying, "How can I help you?" and then you start to put your order in, and then a different voice comes in and says, "Oh, can you repeat that order for me?" Well, why didn't you get it the right the first time? And so as that frustration kicks in, our experience is worse. And when our experiences are worse, then we decide, well, I'm not coming back here. I don't want to go through this whole process every single time I go to McDonald's. So I'm going to go somewhere else where I know I'm speaking with a real person who is asking me the same question or asking me a question only once and who is probably getting the order correctly that one time. No handoffs, no weird, experiences, just order, get my food, eat.
When you think about these implementations and these great examples that you've given our audience, how do you help small businesses not get clunky in their implementation of AI? So that they won't make some of the same mistakes that we just uncovered right here. Like for a case an example, having AI automated answering service, or you can have an answering service, but having them trying to really deal with problems in real time that is not really
Yeah,
trained.
I mean, we talk about how do we hand things off, right? It's one thing to start with the AI as kind of a way to filter through what problems are and then hand it off to a person when the AI can't really, come up with the answer. I think we're starting to get a little bit more advanced with some of this. For example, if I'm getting emotionally frustrated, can the AI recognize my frustrations in my voice and then realize, you know what, maybe I should get a real person to kind of help facilitate this? So as we advance, that's great. But there's still things that the AI can't do that we as humans expect. And it still goes back to, well, if you're forcing this upon your consumers, you're creating experiences that are ultimately going to drive those customers away, especially when we go back to fast food. There really is no option. I'm going through a drive-through. It's not like the drive-through agent could say, "Hey, I'm going to hand you off to an assistant," and then all of a sudden, the assistant is still going to have to ask you the same question. There's no way of it kind of, those types of steps in the process are very hard for us to still achieve, and so I think companies just have to be aware of this, right? They have to be aware, do we want to impose the AI on our consumers, and for what purpose? And if not, then how are we going to facilitate it with a real human? And, think about this. The argument is, and you kind of touched on this, I don't want to go through self checkout because I want to ensure that somebody keeps their job. And yet at Taco Bell, you're forcing me to use an AI agent. You're reducing the number of people who are working so that you can save money while also increasing the prices of your food. So what am I getting out of this experience? I I'm not getting any benefit. I'm talking with less people and I'm charged more for that.
Yeah.
Like that's just the problems that I think we as consumers start to recognize, but businesses, they're in the business of making money and that's how they're looking at it.
Yeah, being in the business of making money can hurt the end user, and it also can bring you out of business. Like uh, Toys R Us, for an example, stayed in that their lane to. In fact, they doubled down. Babies are us, teens are us, this is us. And instead of looking at what was going on and listening to the customer, the need of the customer, the customers transitioning in the way that they were buying, or the way that they needed to consume, they doubled down on what worked before. How are you helping organizations? And I'm really want to pinpoint organizations because sometimes organizations are like the last to get it. Religious organizations are sometimes the last to get it. We should be light of the world. We should be salt of the earth. But as long we always seem to come in behind the eight ball. What is your message to organizations?
Yeah, I mean, that was my half of book. So my first book was customer transformation, and it was really designed for enterprises and businesses that need to better understand their consumer base. But I wrote a companion version of customer transformation specifically for nonprofits to try to help them better understand who is their consumer, and I think a lot of times organizations, whether they're nonprofits or even for profits, they don't recognize exactly who their consumer is and what it will take to make them, happy, or how to make their lives easier. You think about something like donations or how to go through the process of donations, and there's so many different ways out there that organizations are doing fundraising and donation based processing. And yet they're not paying attention to, like, Venmo as an example, as an option. Like, could you go to Venmo and figure out a way to build an integration into the system that takes 1 cent off of every transaction and it applies to some sort of thing that is good for us? I mean, if we were to do that, we would be making lots of money for good and noble causes. But it doesn't, you know, it takes people to actually go through and think in that way, and then go and ask and try to build those types of systems and solutions. So when I think, nonprofit and trying to identify who their customer is, yeah, in a lot of cases they are behind, because they're focused on, areas of their business and maintaining the business without really trying to think through this technological revolution that we're experiencing and how they can leverage that, as a means by which to further enhance their causes.
How wide or how tight is the window of opportunity right now in this AI evolution?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I would say that you're going to get a different response depending on who you talk to. There's a lot of people out there that are saying, you've got to implement AI now or you're going to lose out. I mean, this kind of fear of missing out, is all over the place. Um, but there is a certain reality check. The reality check is that in most cases, artificial intelligence is not capable of doing a lot of the things that people think that it could do. It's wrong in a lot of cases, and so there's high levels of risk. There's questions on elements like copyright protection that still have not been answered. There's the cost and return on investment is still not really completely realized yet. Um, so I would say that, we look at it more like websites. Websites have been around since going on now maybe 30 years, right? 33, 34 ish years, when websites and the web that we know it really kicked off. Um, in the first, say 10 years, five definitely into the 2000s when we hit the .com boom, and people said, "Hey, we need to build websites," and everybody in the world was like on a website kick. Um, and then we had a what we called the .com bubble burst, right? And everything exploded. And then we had to ramp back up, and um, the web as we know it today with social media, like um, Facebook and Twitter and the such. I mean, that really didn't materialize until middle of 2000s, 2004, 2005 into 2006. Then we sort of hit some sort of good trend in 2010, and then we ramped up in 2012, 2015, and so on. And so if we compare that to AI, we are basically in the 1990s of website development, right? Are in the beginning years of what AI from a consumer perspective can could potentially do. AI in broadly has been around for over 65 years.
Yeah.
But AI from a consumerism access, being able to use it personally, things like that. We're less than 3 years into this. So I would say that we've got a little ways to go before it's mainstream and before a lot of organizations need to worry about it. But those who are investing in it now and trying to hop on that bandwagon, great, enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm finding that there's an opportunity now to, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a good teacher, you're a coach, to really carve out where you can be a voice. Like you're one of the leading voices, right? You have the book, you have organizations coming to you, helping them to understand it. but there's opportunity for young people that's looking to stick their toe in the business world and they already understand it a little bit, to get educated, to learn, maybe get some certifications to learn, and to lend their voice. Whereas if they were in another industry, they would have so much competition. Here, I see that there can be a platform for opportunity. What would you say there?
Well, let me ask you a question because I think what you're touching on is really a good point. And if I was to, if I was to come, you know, to your area, your community, and we were to gather up, 100 kids. Let's just say we got 100 kids into a gymnasium, and we said this is going to be a business session, and give you all the opportunity to learn something and to take that skill and apply it to your own personal life and the future that you could potentially be the next entrepreneurs. And I had to give you an option. And I said, your options are communication skills, um, finance skills, teamwork skills, or artificial intelligence skills. And you could only pick one. Which one do you think is more critical and relevant for the future of their education?
Um, Probably education, finance.
Finance. Yeah. 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 I mean, absolutely. Like the financial skills and money management and things that make this world go around um, would be an awesome skill to teach and would probably have more lasting, life altering impact than artificial intelligence ever would.
Yeah, finance. Um, in that vein, though, that's a great one. I think that all of those skills, like for an entrepreneur, just finding your voice, finding your voice. It's best to have the finance skill first because most entrepreneurs find a voice and they lose a lot of money. And then they get the finance skills. So if I come in with the financial skills, then I can go and really figure out how do I want to impact the world with whatever knowledge that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we think about this and even basic communication skills, critical thinking skills. Um, we talked about finance, right? But collaboration, teamwork, community, spirit, drive, all of these things that we as humans should possess, that we need to have in order to be successful. Um, One, are not being taught, which is a huge issue. And two, are being degraded because of artificial intelligence. When I no longer have to have a conversation with you and meet you and get to know you, and it's very cool that we're having this time on the podcast. When that goes away because now our podcast hosts are just robots asking me questions, that's not communication, right? That's not collaboration. And when we're using Chat GPT to cut and paste answers into an assignment, that's not education. That's not critical thinking. That's ruining the core foundations of our human spirit and handing it off to technology to control. And I'm not saying that this is about controlling us. We're not talking about like Terminator here and it's going to take over the world. I'm talking about that our natural loss of intelligence, our human intelligence, is at stake when we put too much emphasis on the artificial part.
It's funny that you say that because I was just having a similar conversation, and I would like your thoughts. the further we got away from our old archaic selves, the worse we got at that intuition. Like the man had to look at the stars in order to navigate. We can't do that. We have to get a map. We have before we had a paper map. Can you imagine pulling out a paper map now and asking your kids, let's figure out how to get from here to Kalamazoo? They're like, I don't know how to do that. Just give me the phone. Let's just put it in a thing, right? We had all of these innate skills, our food, everything that we did, our clothing was according our survival was according to our instincts. That was natural. The more advanced in technology, the duller those instincts became. And you're saying, let's be careful because soon we're going to wipe out all of those intelligence.
Yep, there's research out there, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but there's a percentage that basically most college students today do not know how to change a light bulb. Now, you have to ask yourself, why? Well, because one, technology has improved light bulbs to a point where we don't have to change them out as often. And so, because I don't have to change it out as often, then that skill set is naturally lost due to evolution. Well, if college students don't know how to change a light bulb, then what else is next? I use a great kind of example to this, and it's the uh, creation or making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, if I was to ask most people, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? They would be able to do that. Now, whether that's inherent, whether that's logical, whether they've eaten enough kind of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as a kid that they get the process. But what's curious is when you start to implement challenges in that process. Like, for example, if I said, okay, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but you do not have a knife. Now, you probably could quickly come up with a couple of ways to do it. And most people would say, well, I'll use a spoon. I asked a student once, he said, I'd use a finger. Somebody said I'd use a stick, right? So the basic premise of how you could still create this peanut butter and jelly sandwich is still present. But as you make that scenario more complicated, the youth don't understand it. They don't know what that basic foundation is because they're not presented with enough critical thinking opportunities to decipher how they would go about it. And that is the risk of AI right now, is that we are losing basic, primal, critical thinking processing because we're relying too much on a go-to output that just says, here's the answer. And I can take that answer and say, I'm now smart. I have the answer. But you don't actually know the skill set and the processes to achieve it.
Well, that's it's funny that you use that example because even in sports, parents are now choosing the competition for their kids. Where when I was coming up, we played against anyone. We went to each other's home base. We took pride in it, making sure we wanted the best competition. But even if we played down to somebody, we made sure that we brought our best. But now you have parents that get the coach. Kid is 4 years old. He's the best 4-year-old in the world. In fact, video recorders, they put them in situations where they will always win. And then when they really start to face adversity, they don't have the intestinal fortitude to do so. It's happening all over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's sports is an interesting one as well. And, I've definitely seen it. Like my son, as an example, he's had no interest in sports at all growing up. And so I think, again, the goal here is what opportunities can we provide to the youth, and In some cases, if they want to become video game developers and that's what they want to pursue, that's great. If they want to be artists or if they want to be, um, sports, that all of that's fine. But we have to be able to provide the balance between like, here's the creativity side of it. Here's the physical side of it. Like we don't have AI playing sports for us right now, right? That's a human condition that if we were to lose it, and just jump to all AI based sporting events, we would lose something as human beings.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to see that. It's hard to watch the sporting events now with the coddling and the overpriced tickets and, you know, anyway. I really appreciate the time that you took out to have this conversation with me. Let's talk a little bit about your book. You're excited. You got your second and a half book recently published. Uh,
Yeah.
all of the information, well, we don't want you to be interested. Go and get this book. All of the information is in our description. But what prompted you to write this book?
Yeah, what prompted me is a lot of what we're talking about today is that you start seeing this belief system, I call it, this ideology of artificial intelligence, and that it's elevating AI beyond its capabilities. I think part of that is due to movies and media. We watch Terminator and we believe that AI is going to take over the world. We watch other types of movies or we hear what is on the news, and we get this kind of false sense of what AI actually is. And then on top of all of that, you've got all of the marketing and investment hype as to AI, and that is really kind of corrupting what AI is capable of, and it's distracting people from really understanding what AI can accomplish in our lives. And so when all of this kind of hype is on top of ideology, we're really setting ourselves up for a huge failure and disappointment. And I wanted to take that kind of approach or insights to the hype and to the belief system around AI. And so the book Infallible is really a play on words of infallible. When we believe that AI is infallible and can do no wrong, then we're really positioning ourselves for failure. Definitely from a human perspective and even a technological perspective. So, yeah, that's the book.
Besides your book, what books have impacted you, fiction, nonfiction, that you would recommend to people who they were saying, hey,
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading a lot of Michael Crichton stories again. So Jurassic Park is a great example of this. And there's another Jurassic Park movie coming out. I don't know if we need 9 movies because they're all the same. But if we purely look at kind of the science of it, Jurassic Park is built on the premise of we as humans can play God and we can create evolution, and we can make dinosaurs and ultimately we find out that has consequences. You could put AI in place of the dinosaurs right now for Michael Crichton, and you'd basically have the same premise. Like we're toying with things that we probably need to really think about. So yeah, Michael Crichton is on a lot of my. I've got a shelf here of sci-fi and fiction and classics, everything from Dracula and Frankenstein to, some of the newer stuff. But yeah, fiction will always kind of rule my heart.
well, there you have it, everybody. Listen, all of Chris's information is in the description. You're going to see in the first paragraph in the description, that's the highlight. You click that line, and it's going to take you to a website, the landing page with the books, the information, the social media handles, everything so that you can get and stay abreast of what it is that he's doing and how he's impacting the world. And I think the message is great, clear, and concise, and one that needs to be consumed. Secondly, we don't ask you for cash apps, Venmos, or any of those things, although I'll call it donation, or I got to get another computer. So they can bring you through that you hit like and subscribe. Your subscriptions, your likes, they go a long way in helping us to get these conversations into the ears of people that need them. And right now, we all need to hear a good conversation. And finally, don't walk with your head down. Don't walk allowing AI to control your life, but walk in victory with us. Chris is now a part of the Walk in Victory family, and and you are too. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.